The retired Colonel, Laurie Buckhout.
That was so nice. Okay, can that puppy come with me?
That I can announce.
He's our
The
mascot.
dog is voted and has good instinct.
That's a conservative dog, right? That dog votes Republican? Okay, good, oh, good, all right. You put your paw print there. Excellent. I don't expect to see any voter fraud out of that dog. Hey, Brad, thank you so much. I mean, that was just so heartfelt and kind. So I'll tell you how you got the idea to run for Congress here. So the idea of running for office has always been kind of floating around the back of my mind. I was, student council vice president, senior class vice president, this and that, and I, like to make change. I always enjoyed that kind of thing. And so when I graduated college, I got commissioned, did my Army career. I'll tell a little more about that. But about a month and a half ago, I was walking through a cotton field with my dog. And we're walking along, the phone rings, and it's a guy that I'd met with Sandy Robertson last year when Sandy was running. So I thought we had a really strong field last year, Brad, Brent, all the bees, I mean, we're everywhere, and Sandy, and the Sandys, and it was such a strong field. But I did meet Sandy Robertson's sort of personal advisor, who is named Jonathan Brooks, who's from the Greenville area, born and bred North Carolinian, the whole 9 yards. So he goes, hey, Sandy might not run. If Sandy doesn't run, what are you thinking? Because we had met before, he'd been at my house, we had discussed, I think he knew my ethics, I think he knew how I thought, and I think more than anything, he and I think Sandy Robertson and now Brad know my deep, deep, deep conservatism. And in every sense of the world, I am a constitutional conservative. The first vote in my life was for Ronald Reagan. I was a Reagan girl in college. With the Young Americans for Freedom and the Young Republicans. YAF was a big thing back then. And I have never made anything but a Republican vote. I've never donated to anything but Republicans, and it is my life to live as a conservative. My parents were the same way. All of my cousins, etc., are the same way, except for a few loonies out in Minnesota, but that's another story. You know what? You can't help your relatives sometimes. They're just off the chain. But Brad, thank you for that. But I felt moved to run, and before I get into who I am, I felt moved to run. Wasn't the phone call. It was the fact that I have 2 young men. I have 2 sons. I have a 21-year-old and a 24-year-old. And we have raised them as conservatives, and it has not been easy. The Army sent me to the Pentagon as my last tour because I was going to get promoted to colonel. So when you leave, I left combat, and they sent me to Washington, D.C. to the Pentagon. Because at that point, when you're a colonel, the Army's like, okay, you're done leading in combat and having the fun and shooting people. Now it's time for you to learn government. It's time for you to learn as a senior executive how the Department of Defense fits in the government, how you make budgets, where you get money. So in the Pentagon, I was testifying before the House Armed Services Committee, the Senate Armed Services Committee, the subcommittees, the Intel committees, and then appropriations, which is where the money comes in. So I got very good at money budgets. So we stayed in D.C. for a while until my youngest graduated high school. Couldn't wait to get the hell out of town. But we managed to keep our kids conservative through that time. But what I saw, though, was a creeping sickness coming into America from the left. It's infecting our babies. It is infecting our children. So now my children's peers are saying, we don't want to have babies. We don't want to raise families because we don't trust America. And they're nihilists. They have no belief in anything anymore. They have destroyed Christianity. They no longer believe in God. They don't believe in any religion. They only believe in the state and what the state can give them. I mean, they're actually doing stuff like, why do you want to build wealth? And when Brad and I had companies, we built these companies from nothing, and we employed hundreds of people. I gave hundreds of people jobs. They sent their kids to college with the money that we paid them. They sent their kids to college. They bought homes. They bought cars. They had wonderful family gatherings because we gave them jobs. People don't want to do that anymore because of the creeping poison from the left. And it's been eating at me. I have been nights awake, tormented over it, and when this call came saying, would you consider this? It was like God had just put this in my hands. Now I will say, every single decision in my life I have prayed on. And you know, a person's life, you go, I did anyway, all over the spectrum from being a believer to being, not so much. You know, when you're in college, you're like, not so much. But I've had miracles in my life. I've had 2 babies who almost died, and God saved them both. He got me and all of my soldiers alive out of combat. And every time I have gotten on my knees and prayed, on my knees and my head on the bed, thinking, God, tell me what to do, because this is another very important intersection in my life. And He has always given me the right direction. If they say, if God leads you into it, He won't leave you alone. He will not desert you if He leads you into it. And I have prayed on my knees. When I was going into combat, I found out we were going to deploy into combat, and I was scared to death. So the first thing I did was call my dad, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, POW, the whole 9 yards, infantryman, and he goes, hot damn, you are going to be a combat commander. And I was like, okay, great, Dad, okay, this is good. And then I was still afraid, and I went and I prayed by the side of the bed, and my husband was like, honey, you're going to be great. And I said, okay, God, you've given me everything I've ever wanted. You've given me a wonderful, loving husband. You've given me 2 perfect little boys. One was about a year old when I deployed, and the other was about 3 and a half. You've given me 2 beautiful babies. You've given me a wonderful career. You've given me everything I ever wanted. You've given me a combat command, which is what you dream of when you go in the Army. That's what you want to do. It's like playing for, you know, an NFL team. You want to go to the Super Bowl. That's what you train for your whole life. So I wanted to go. But I was like, God, you've given me all these blessings, but you gave them to me right now at the same time, and it's a lot. The voice came into my head and just said, calm down. You got this. You will be okay. So he brought me into it, and He brought me out of it. So we prayed on this. It's the right thing to do. I feel we need to bring back so much of the America that we all grew up with. Well, I mean, we do. Every single one of us remembers growing up with freedom and prosperity. You could buy a car, you could buy a house, you could raise a loving family, you could come together for Thanksgiving without worry about how you're going to buy a turkey, you know? You could think about, I can save money for the future. I can do a 401k. I can buy a farm. I can buy a tractor, you know? I don't need to think about a 12% interest rate if I'm going to buy that tractor because I can't afford that. Those are things that we grew up with was freedom. So, I think we need to really, really fight to bring that back. And I think every parent in the room, every grandparent in the room recognizes that. Every uncle, every aunt. Our children need to be saved. And we are at the brink of some very terrible things. So, my background, as Brad was so kind to point out, I was an Army brat. My dad was, we grew up all over the place. And when he retired to the Shenandoah Valley, to a little house in a place that looks very much like Edenton, but it's in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountain. The town's called Waynesboro. It's grown a lot when you look it up, but that Main Street looks just like Main Street, just like Broad Street in Edenton. There was a Belk's, that was a big deal. Kmart finally opened up when I was going to college. A Kmart opened up outside of town. That was a big deal. But otherwise, you went to Ace Hardware, and there was an Army-Navy store. That's where we bought our clothes, because my dad was very cheap. As soon as I got commissioned after graduating from college, I went to Europe, and it was a Cold War, and it was the Soviets. And I was collecting intelligence on the Soviets because they were collecting intelligence on us. And you see communism, and you see it trying to creep into America right now. And you see what it did. So I was there when the wall fell, and of course, went into East Germany, you know, and wandered around, and just the poverty and the sadness, and like I said, the nihilism, the lack of belief in anything. What a sad life that was. So much hardship, state owning everything, the state telling you what your job would be, when you would come to work, the state saying, well, you're in line for a car, and you can have this little 2-stroke engine Lada, probably about 6 years from now, we'll be able to give you one. You know, and it was they were a piece of crap cars. I mean, everything there was horrible because nobody cared. There was no incentive to do better. Then life went along, and I got deployed to Iraq. And I tell you what, you see the same thing. Their religion is different. But I'll tell you what it's like there. And I'll tell you what I see when I see these pro-Palestinian protesters on the streets. Yeah, District Attorney Cruden is just shaking his head. Because here's, I'll give you just an example. The Middle East is a zone of savagery that Americans cannot comprehend. They can't comprehend it. So these college kids out there, you know, pro-Palestinian, especially you see women who would be covered in a black bag, right? And oh, by the way, if they got raped, they'd be stoned because they're the ones who tempted a man. There go pro-Palestinian. You see gays who they would throw off a building. So yeah, it's about maybe 3 months into the war or so. We did the ground war, so we fought our way up to Baghdad. I had about 800 soldiers spread out all over Iraq. So we were always in Humvees or helicopters all the time. We were being shot at. It was rockets, it was RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, small arms fire, and then surface-to-air missiles if you were in the helicopter. I mean, it was just endless. So what we're trying to do is to stop these people from trying to kill us and make friends with them. We keep trying to do that. It's useless. It's useless. They hate each other. They hate everybody. Hatred is their religion. So anyway, we go out and build ourselves out a place to be up there. We're guarded, and we got, you know, barbed wire around the outside and guards and stuff, and we're protecting ourselves. But we're going out to this local little village and trying to bring people in and trying to help them not hate us. So we're like, hey, we'll give you an American $1 a day to fill sandbags. Well, that was a big deal. Real, you know, a US dollar to fill sandbags for us. That's okay. So nobody spoke English, but there were a few US educated people in this little village. One of them was a woman who had been US educated. And she's like, I speak English. So it was amazing. She goes, I can interpret for you. Lovely woman, and she, you know, covered her hair, but not her face. So we're talking to her, and for about a week, she's coming every morning from the village and coming in to help us tell people what to do, how to fill a sandbag, where to put it, and stuff like that. We want people to stop killing us. So one day she doesn't show up. So we send a patrol out, send about 4 guys with a Humvee, guns all done up, you know, because they're trying to kill you. So with helmets and flak vests and stuff like that, all the weapons, to go to the village and say, hello, hey, have you seen, you know, Abdullah, whatever her name was? No. So my guys started asking around, and here's what they did. The village elders did not like her speaking to American male soldiers. Now, by the way, they couldn't call me ma'am because they can't see women in authority. So all the Iraqis, all the Middle Easterners, they call me sir, because that's the only way they can talk to me as an equal. They can respect me. They have to treat me as a man. So, well, sir, we don't know. Well, they didn't want her talking to Americans, so they doused her with kerosene and set her on fire. That's what they do. And that's what Palestinians do. And the whole reason that they do that is because it's a region of hatred. The only sense was brought to it when the English went in and divided it into portions, and that became nations, you know. Otherwise, it'd still be tribe on tribe. It's just tribal violence, and that's in America now. That's marching down our streets in America now. And people are like, it's no big deal. It is a very big deal. So that is where I come from. Post-career, post my military career, I started my own business. And again, I prayed on that. Well, I ended up hiring about 200 people through running my business. And again, they got benefits, I got health care, they got life insurance, they got everything, 401k. And they had, you know, great living. 2019, my son was getting ready to graduate from high school. We really wanted to get out of Northern Virginia. So I sold the business, and then we could move. But even throughout running that business, though, you know, you saw it begin to creep into the Pentagon. You saw the woke virus coming in, and I knew that we had to do something about it. So the issues that I care about, besides the big one of making a future for our kids, and we really have to do that, is the border. We have to close the border. Everybody knows we have to close the border. Do you know that there are like 9 million illegal aliens who have come in so far? The population of North Carolina is about 10 million. So I think the population now of illegal aliens is larger than, I don't know, maybe a dozen US states. I mean, it's insane. And these guys, a lot of them, a lot of you know Tony Schaefer. He works over at Social Services. He helps out over there. So the illegal aliens, I'm not sure if it's an individual or family, are getting $2,500 a piece coming in. I think it's a month, but it's cash. And then if you present, now, y'all please correct me here, I read this recently. If you present, because I went on the website for the expansion of Medicaid, what documents can illegal aliens use to get Medicaid access? A notice to appear, which is a document, Mr. District Attorney, that you get when you come in that the Border Patrol gives you. So you get a notice to appear. They don't ever go back to appear. It's just a piece of paper, right? And then there are several other documents that you can have, that you can present per the website on the Medicaid expansion in North Carolina, by which illegal aliens, if they have these paperwork, can give to get Medicaid coverage. So, that's your tax dollars. That's your tax dollars.
That's denied to people who pay into it.
Denied to people who pay
Yes.
into it. That's exactly right. So, that's one. The border has to be closed. And it's not just the money issue, it's the danger issue. I mean, I know terrorists, I fought terrorists. I know what's coming in down there. Not only just, you know, folks, the whole pro-Palestinian crowd, got folks from all over the Middle East who just hate America, we're evil to them. You got folks coming from Central America, you got drug cartels are just running rampant down there. Fentanyl, highest overdose on record was this year. This last year was the highest overdose on record, number of overdoses in America ever, and it just keeps climbing because fentanyl's all over the streets. Terrorism, drugs, human trafficking, which is just horrific, you know, the children that are being nabbed down there, and crime. I lived in a border town in Arizona when I was assigned there, one of my military assignments. We lived in Sierra Vista. And this was in the 90s, before the border was wide open. And even then, that border's so big, it wasn't completely covered down on. So there was crime, there was drugs, big problem with drugs getting into the military base and going after our young soldiers. So we were always drug testing, you know, the young troops. They were always being lured into temptation because it was right there and it was cheap. And the drug cartels were pushing it so hard. Because the military base is full of young 18 and 19-year-olds, right? Taxes. Oh, this is my next big issue. The General Assembly has done magic. Our North Carolina General Assembly has done a great job in pushing taxes down. They've been fantastic. But it's something we have to continue to watch. And that goes into that goes into government spending. The spending is insane. What do you do when you want to fill a bucket with water that's full of holes? Stop the holes. You know, I mean, fill up the holes in the bucket and then you can put water in it. We are hemorrhaging so much more. The debt is getting so much worse. And now folks will say, is debt tied to inflation? Interest on a debt is definitely tied to inflation, right? But also tied to inflation is the fact that they are raising interest rates on loans, right? So that's going, and homes are becoming unaffordable. People are having to rent. The economy still hasn't gotten completely going from the COVID craziness, and they crushed small business during the COVID shutdowns. And all those small businesses have still not come back to life. So you still have folks on public assistance who had wonderful, thriving small businesses. And the more you tax, listen, I ran a small business, and the taxes I paid to state, local, city, county were obscene. It just never stops. You're always writing out another check for another tax that comes from somebody. And you can't run a small business that way. I mean, it'll tax you to death. So we gotta address taxes, especially in areas like here where small businesses and farms thrive. I already talked to you about inflation, national security, man. So I still have a top secret clearance. I've had a top secret clearance since I was 21 years old. With that top secret clearance, I have had access to a whole bunch of stuff that I know many congressmen don't know. Hush up over there, what's she doing? So I've had access to a lot of things in the intelligence world that your average congressman does not know. The weaponization of intelligence agencies against US citizens. You know, that kind of thing started, I guess, in 2001 or so after 9/11. George Bush started it, saying we gotta have the Patriot Act. What that does, it allows the US government to surveil all your emails, all your phone calls, all the electronic data going back and forth. right? They can access all your records, all your criminal records, your college records, all that kind of stuff, ostensibly to root out terrorists, right? But if that's not used judicially, you have a big problem. And it seems to appear to me it's not being used judicially. When you see weaponization against political appointees and political opponents, you have a major issue. I understand the questions to ask because I've been inside. And if there's a testimony going on from somebody from CIA or FBI or any of the intelligence agencies, I can sit on that committee and say, Mr. Smith, is it true that you did X, Y, and Z? Why did you do this? You know that that is against this act. Why did you do this? The FISA, where you have to go to a court to say, it's okay for me to spy on this person because I expect him to be a criminal. That's what they used to go after Trump. With this false trumped up thing that there was Russian collusion there. Everyone knew that wasn't true. It was absurd on its face. But our intelligence and our judicial system let them get away with that. So I know the questions to ask. I know the FISA process. And I know what should and should not be done. I've been inside of it. Money. I told you in the Pentagon I was responsible for working billion-dollar programs with Congress and getting them funded. So it is a delicate dance. And walking in as a freshman senator, not knowing how the budgeting in Congress works, not knowing appropriations and ways and means, and the House Armed Services Committee, et cetera, you have to have an understanding of Congress to be effective on day one. Otherwise, it's a very tough uphill battle, and you have to know how to get money for your district. I've been working budget up there for years. I was known to be a little bit of a magician at it because I got a $1 billion line put in the budget for an electronic warfare program that stopped soldiers from being blown up by roadside bombs. That's why when I retired, the Army wanted me to come back to them and help them with that program because I have a mind for it. I may have studied art when I was young, but I'm a savant when it comes to the electromagnetic spectrum, electronic warfare, and cyber. So anyway, I know budgets. On that vein, I want to tell you something about Israel and why I'm such a passionate advocate for Israel. It's not that I love them more than America, but it's because I understand their place in the Middle East. They are the only democracy in the Middle East. They're the ones who keep a lid on a whole lot of the difficulties that arise from every country being at war with every other country. The fact that they have very superior weapons, they have the Iron Dome, which is an air defense that protects them from bombs for the most part. The fact that they have that keeps a lid on a whole lot of the aggression that's coming out of the Middle East. But I also had a very transformative visit over there about 6 years ago or so. I was asked by the Defense Department of Israel, by the Israeli Defense Force, to come over and brief on cyber. It's what I do. So I was invited by the Israeli IDF to come over and give a briefing to them on some of the cyber efforts that we were doing. I was cleared to go do it by the US government, and I went over there. So I get into Tel Aviv. Here's what I see. I see crowds of people on the street, open stores, happy people, little kids. I hear dozens of languages. Everyone's there. You got Christians who are going there, to pray. You've got Orthodox Jews. You have very unorthodox Jews. You've got Arab women who are completely covered. Again, dogs on leashes. Everyone's having a good time. It was such this egalitarian, beautiful democratic city. Everyone was open and friendly. And there are over 2 million Arabs who go to work every day there and live there in Israel. And they don't, the Israelis are like, yeah, fine, we all get along. It is illegal to have a Jew go to any of these Middle Eastern countries. It is against the law for a Jew to enter these countries. And as a matter of fact, when I had my passport, I'm coming in, and the Israeli border guy coming in says, hey, you might want to put this passport on a different sheet inside your passport if you plan on going anywhere in the Middle East anytime soon, because they will not let you in if there's an Israeli stamp in your U.S. passport. I'm a U.S. citizen, and their hatred is so bad But they're telling me, if there is a stamp in my passport, they won't let me into their country. After we give billions of foreign aid to these nations, and I, as a U.S. citizen, can't go if I've got an Israeli stamp on my passport. So that's the madness that I think we see, and I think it's boiling over into America. I think that the lack of belief in bigger and better things, and it's not just God, it's not just Christianity. I don't think you have to be a Christian to be a good person, but I think you have to believe in the American dream. And I think the left is purposefully crushing that so that they can get you under control. You see it all over the place. You see the leftists who vote for generational Democrat leaders are now in multi-generational poverty. You look at any big city. You look at places, you know, look at Detroit, look at Chicago, look at LA, look at New York. Look at the sadness that is on the ground, people who just cannot get out, multi-generational. My favorite soldiers in the U.S. Army were the young kids who got out of terrible situations, who were maybe, I don't know, 6th, 7th, 8th generation not knowing who their dad was. And they were raised by generations of women who never knew who their fathers were. And so those people would come in the Army and they'd get away from it. And I loved them so much. I love these 18-year-old kids who had the courage to go enlist in the Army and say, I'm gonna get out of this, I'm gonna break this cycle. And they would get paid and they'd learn prosperity and they'd see a better life. And a lot of those kids out there are voting Republican right now because they learned somebody's holding them down and it's not the Republicans. So I would ask for your vote. I would tell you that I think a vote for me is a vote for experience. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to walk in as your average freshman walking around, where's my office? Been on the Hill many times, but more importantly than that, I know how to get money. I know what people need. I love Eastern North Carolina. I may be a transplant, but I got here as fast as I could. And this is my home. They're going to carry me out of here feet first. I promise you that. My husband and I feel the same way. This is our first step to heaven. So when we're gone, that'll be the next step, but we're going to be leaving here, going up. I think I'm a vote for experience. I think I'm a vote for integrity. What my dad said to me when I was growing up, and says, look, you know what, you're an Army officer now. I remember when I got commissioned, you're an Army officer now. But this was his thing. An officer never lies, cheats, or steals, or tolerates those who do. I don't need money from Congress. I worked my butt off. My husband and I figured out between us, we've worked 89 years. 89 years we have worked and taken a paycheck and saved and scrimped and done stuff like that. So I don't need the money from Congress. I don't need power. This is power. Coming together as an American community, this is power. I don't need power up there. I don't need any more fame. There's too much about me on the internet as it is. What I want is to serve. I think it sounds a little weird when you say it, but I spent a lifetime serving, and it makes my heart feel good. It makes my heart feel good. My husband's the same way. My parents were the same way. So I guess it's selfish. I'm doing it because it makes my heart feel good. And knowing that I can help people and make a difference is the same way I felt on active duty when I could help soldiers and make a difference and bring everybody home alive. So I think the mission continues, and the mission here is not to bring everybody home alive, but the mission here is to help lift Eastern North Carolina into freedom and prosperity. Because I think everybody deserves that. It is the American dream. It shouldn't be unattainable. It should be the thing that, hey, you know what? It is in you to have the American dream. And it is against every law of man to have government try to take it away. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to crush dreams. You know, as far as the left is concerned, you don't need to have dreams. You can have the state take care of you. I want dreams. I want our kids to have dreams. I want our kids to have kids and not think, well, the world's a sad place. I'm never going to get married and have children. Or I'm going to change my gender and be sterile for life and never have children. That's a terrible, horrific thing. And again, thank God to the North Carolina General Assembly for fighting and bringing back the parents' right to know what your kids are being taught, what they're doing in school. And when somebody wants to try to change a gender on your child, parent has a right to know. Yeah, so guys, that's all I have. I appreciate your time. Christina, you're a goddess. Really. You call me
They
out.
call me an instigator around here, I don't know why.
Well, you know what? You're an instigating goddess, but you really are a goddess. And I mean, when you called me out of the blue, I was like, hey, I think I've met her. And you are just do so much for this community and so much for this cause and so much for the country. And frankly, I don't think you get nearly the credit you deserve, but I'm here to help change that. And just thank you so much. And thank you all so much. And I'm open to any questions. My life is an open book. I said I would say my credit score. I'll tell you my credit score, but my life isn't. My life's an open book. Any questions?
I'm Googling.
We're gonna fact check.
Yeah. All right. Any questions from anybody?
Do you have any cards or anything?
I have some flyers to give out. I gave out all my cards at I think at an oyster roast, but I've got more on order. So yes, sir. And my cell phone number is on the flyers that I'm giving out. Call, text. Send a selfie. G-rated.
I was gonna say, be careful.
What is your plan to make it around that's a very large district on the map behind you there. What is your plan to, are you trying to go to all the?
Oh, yeah. I love this. I love this big purple blob. This is going to be so much fun. This is going to be a hoot. So I'm very excited about this. I've got a new campaign manager. Matt Cooley just came on. I didn't have one before because his campaign's just getting going. So I've got Matt Cooley, who he's from Virginia Beach in the Suffolk area in Virginia, so just up over the border. He helped Glenn Youngkin get elected in Virginia. So he is smart, he's young and energetic, and we are just running around having a great time, forgetting to eat a little bit. That's all right. Yeah, we're having a good time. Oh, hush up.
The dark's in favor.
I know.
Forgetting
You wanna-
to eat is a byproduct
You
of being a
want
candidate.
to let her go?
Oh, yes,
She's got
yes.
good instinct.
Come here. All right, anybody else?
Yeah, speaking of Youngkin and his red vest, I love your vest.
I do too.
Where did you get it from?
You want to know where I got it?
Yes.
Okay, there's an online company that goes out of South Carolina, and they make these like personally embossed goods. It's called Marley Lily. Marley Lily, all one word. All the men are like, oh, for God's sake. What? Yeah, yep. And you can get a monogram.
Well, I was getting ready to say that should be your uniform. We should all wear them.
You can get them. I love this thing, man. Army, I do. I love it. I got T-shirts too. We got T-shirts too. So we'll be jamming. But yeah, I'll see you. Am I going to see you Saturday?
Yes. I don't know, you coming Saturday?
You coming
Are you talking to
Saturday?
me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you're not? Okay. All right.
You can.
I know I can.
You should.
You can.
Are you coming Saturday?
Women's group?
Yeah.
Yep.
Outstanding. Okay. I'll tell you guys where you can get it. It's a great vest. Pockets. What are you doing? Come here. Come here.
Let me get something
Okay, I
straight.
get- yes, sir.
You're running for this district?
Yes, sir. I am.
Varney District.
So you're running for North Carolina?
I'm running for District 1.
For North Carolina?
Yes, sir.
Well,
It's for federal
Congress. in
Congress.
For
Washington.
Congress.
To represent District
Washington.
1 in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay. So
Yes, sir.
that's something I didn't know.
Yes, sir. I'm running to represent District 1, all this purple, and go to Washington, D.C. and carry your cares up there and represent you and bring federal money back here and federal programs and business and anything I can do to make Eastern North Carolina grow and thrive.
And lucky for us, you're very close to yours.
I'm right here. And y'all got my cell phone number? 2023, call, text. Send funny memes, I love those. So